When it comes right down to it, every town has a story. Every place has a past. Even the ones that on the surface seem too ordinary, dull, or common to be anything but your typical small town in the Midwest. It's just a matter of knowing where to look and then figuring out what stories need telling is all. Hey sightseers, Sightseeing Sally here and
Marty.
Today we are checking out
Mercantile, Wisconsin.
Founded in 1859, the original settlement was known as Heartland Corners. Later shortened to Heartland, the name was eventually changed due to another town, one that's located in southern Wisconsin, already claiming the name Heartland. Named after a Belgian Catholic priest whose mission was to serve the Menominee Indians, Bonduelle is a small town that a lot of people outside of Wisconsin probably don't know, but if you're from Wisconsin, you've probably heard of it. Located about 30 miles northwest of Green Bay, many of Bonduelle's first settlers came after the 1860 Homestead Law went into effect. This law granted 160 acres of government land to every settler who built a house, cultivated, and improved the soil upon which they had been granted. You can see Marty's checking out the Mercantile building, which now houses 1919 antiques. If I know Marty, he spotted something interesting. Let's check with him what it is. What you looking at, Marty?
I was checking out all these leaded glass panels along the front here, but then I noticed right here, this old burglar alarm. It's got to be almost as old as the building, if not as old.
Well, it looks like if we want to, we could maybe take a peek inside the building.
I was thinking we'd go across the street to Lorenz's sausage shop and get some beef sticks.
As much as Marty wants beef sticks, I'm pretty sure his cardiologist isn't too hip to that idea. So instead, we're going to go inside over here and check out what's inside the antique store. Right off the bat, you'll notice they still have the old hardwood floors, and if you look up above, you can see the old tin tiles.
Yeah, normally you don't see the whole ceiling yet in them. After 100 years, they've normally been remodeled, or some are missing, water damage, so it's pretty neat to see them all intact. Though in more recent times this building has served the community as an antique mall, it originally started as a general store. Built in 1919 by the Bonduelle Mercantile Company, this store got its start thanks to the 500 or so local stockholders who took a gamble and put money into a new business venture. The largest brick store building in town, the Bonduelle Mercantile Company, was known to sell such things as groceries, clothing, and farm equipment. I think it's really cool that the old Mercantile building is now being used as an antique store. What a great way to highlight the history of this building by selling antiques in it. And other things, you know, handmade items, crafted items, vintage items. You know, Mercantile back in the day wasn't just selling one type of item anyway, so why not have a variety in your store? Check this out. Up here on the second floor, you can see what's left of the old elevator system. You can see on the side over here the big wheel where the motor or whatever must attach to, and then it was reduced down to a gear up there. And then it's all wood on them, like pieces of wood, and notched out for the cable for raising and lowering the elevator from side to side. That's pretty cool.
I've never seen anything like that in all my years of exploring old antique stores and shops and filming. Just think of the craftsmanship that went into that. How amazing that is, especially back then when they didn't have all the conveniences of modern power tools. Well, I better go find Marty. If I know him, he's ogling something around here.
What could it possibly be? Oh, what you looking at, Marty?
Secret of my success. Probably some old Amway sales thing.
I know I'm not supposed to be in here shopping, but I want to take him home. This is a really neat building. Very unique construction. You can see Marty checking out the books that are now stored on that landing. This is one of those times where I wish we had a time machine, because I'd definitely be jumping in it and checking this out back when it was in its heyday. And look at this. This is rare too. You got the original glass. You can see, you can tell, probably not so much through the camera, but it's wavy like the old glass. Because like Marty said, over the years these old buildings often get remodeled and that stuff gets torn out. But this building has it. One other thing I want to point out before we head out are these old doorknobs. Aren't those cool? I mean, they've got more character than the knobs that we have in our home. I just realized how that could be possibly interpreted. All I'm going to say, folks, is go easy. Go easy.
Though it's impossible to jump into a time machine, hearing the sound your shoes make on the wood floors of the Mercantile and seeing what's been preserved of the original building as you browse through the antiques makes you feel almost like you have.
Well, that was fun. Marty bought me something. I guess we better go over and see about those beef sticks, huh?
Let's go.
Guess we're doing this.
Believed to have once been occupied by a couple of dress and hat makers during Bonduelle's early days, the building that now houses Lorenz's sausage shop was also a paint shop at one point.
2 thumbs up on the sausages from Lorenz's. Definitely a spot to stop if you ever get to town. When we were inside the sausage shop, we got to talking with the owner, and Marty is now sitting here checking out this pole because
It's old. It's probably 100 years old. With all the nails and stuff in it.
Once called Appleton Road, Cecil Street as it is now known, is where Carl Stern, one of Bonduelle's earliest settlers, built a log cabin for him and his family and cleared land by hand for crops. Later, his son Frank, who became a real estate investor, sold about 80 acres of that land to developers John Westfall and Arthur Lang for $15,000 in 1905.
Here's one of them cool pie-shaped buildings that I like.
Originally the Bonduelle State Bank, this corner building was one of the first to be put up in the Westfall and Lang addition in 1906 after Frank Stern sold them the property.
next up, we're going to play a little game called Guess What This Building Used to Be. And our first contestant is Marty. What's your guess?
I think it's a bank.
Good job, Marty.
The former home of State Farm Insurance was once known as Spangler's Bank, or at least part of it was. The half closest to the corner was originally used as an entrance to the dance hall located on the second floor of that massive building you see on the corner. The other half, in front of which we are standing, is where the bank used to be. Established by Adolph Spangler Sr., the bank offered higher interest rates on savings accounts than the competition across the way. Spangler's Bank, however, didn't survive the stock market crash of 1929.
Check out the old fire escape. When's the last time you've seen one of them? Now you gotta remember, people, we don't live in a highly populated area, so we don't see these much.
Yeah, you're talking about a couple of people that come from small town USA. So fire escapes on a building are like,
Look at what we have here. Right next to that Ford truck there on the right-hand side. I used to have a car like that when I was in high school. How many people can tell me what that car is?
Be the first person to get that right, and I'll send you your very own Sightseeing Sally sticker. Moving on, here's another cool old vehicle for you, Marty. That's one of the things that you find up here in small towns of Wisconsin. Old cars waiting to be fixed up. Actually, you'll find those pretty much anywhere you go because, as you've seen in some of our other videos, we've discovered quite a few old cars along our journeys.
Old cars and loose women.
What? Where are these loose women coming from is what I want to know, Marty. Come back here and tell me. Well, Marty and I are going to have a conversation offline later about all these loose women. But you can see up ahead, he's peering into another window. I'll catch what he's doing after I check out this, an old Pepsi vending machine standing there. But Marty's over here, probably looking at some more loose women, for all I know. Right, Marty?
An old Cadillac Coupe de Ville hiding in there. Look at that. Now that's a mile of steel there.
There you go. Yeah.
Go in the other window and get the back end of that thing. Look at the tail line there.
All right, let's take a look at that tail.
We got a rear end on her.
Are these the type of loose women you're talking about, Marty?
Look at the size of that trunk. Wow.
Wow, yeah. She's a beauty, all right. While I don't have any good stories about loose women from Bondwell's history, I can tell you about the time that a stagecoach got robbed here. That's right. Back in, I think it was 1889, the stagecoach that ran between Pulsifer and Mosinee got robbed at gunpoint by a masked man. Then the guy showed up here in Bondwell and robbed a grocery store at gunpoint. Stealing supplies and money, the masked man, Raymond Holsey, fled, taking off with Carl Krieger's horses and wagon in the process. Eventually, the law caught up with him as he was apprehended in Michigan. Hey Marty, look at the cool gas pump right over there.
Yeah, that was there 15 years ago. I came here once to get parts for my 1940-something Ford 9N tractor. When I thought I was a farmer, that didn't pan out too well.
Is that why he's always watching old episodes of Green Acres?
Pepto-Bismol Pink.
Do people even still use Pepto-Bismol? As you all know, people here in Wisconsin like to drink. So it comes with no surprise that back in the day, there were a number of saloons here in town. Interestingly enough, though, the very first saloon wasn't in a standalone building like old Wayne's place you see on the corner. Instead, it was in the basement of Spengler's store, with John Hahn being the proprietor.
Built in 1909 by the Spengler family, this former general store carried a wide variety of products. And as previously mentioned, the second floor once held a dance hall where many weddings and dances took place. Coincidentally, there were no bathrooms on that floor. Thus, people had to head down to the basement to use a loo. No wonder Hahn established a saloon in the basement.
With all the modern conveniences, it is easy to forget what life was like back in the day. For example, we've got all these cars coming and going here. But think, back in the day, you wouldn't have had access to an automobile like that. And instead, anywhere you went, you either took a horse and a wagon, or you're just your horse, or you walked.
Imagine walking from Bondwell to Green Bay, or even to Shawano from here. Yet people did it all the time back in the day. even sharing rubber boots. Yes, you heard right. One of the first farmers to own a team of horses and a pair of rubber boots was August Searing. During the muddy season, neighbors borrowed August's boots to walk to Shawano to get groceries.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, the building across the way that has the Ag Source Laboratory sign on it is known as the Hartwig Building. Built in 1929 by the Herman Wigner Construction Company, his daughter Emma and her husband Dave later opened a store up in here called the Hartwig General Store. If I remember correctly, they operated the store from, March of 1930 to about February of 1949. But what the real interesting story is that Emma's husband Dave got 3 votes to be elected president in the spring of 1940 election. Of course, we all know how that played out. Poor Dave was never elected to the White House. However, we found out by looking at a 1980 article in the Green Bay Press Gazette on colorful characters of Bonduelle that Dave revealed the whole entire thing was just a joke. Yeah, he had 3 friends that wanted to play a practical joke on him, so they cast their votes for Dave. Then there was the time in 1909 when thieves broke into the old post office and got away with $3 in pennies. Though they tried blowing open the safe with nitroglycerin, they were completely unsuccessful. And to this day, they still don't know who did it.
Something else you might find interesting is that although Bonduelle is named for a Catholic priest, the predominant religions here are Methodist and Lutheran, as many of its first settlers were of German, Norwegian, and Danish descent.
For our next stop, we're checking out the town park here in Bonduelle. And as you can see, they have the baseball diamond with the bleachers, probably for evening softball games, little league, and that sort of thing. And then over there, you can see off in the distance a little swimming hole. Isn't that cool? I haven't seen one of those in town park probably anywhere. That's actually pretty unusual. And then there's another ball diamond over there, shelter for picnicking, a large tree, and this building here, which, if I'm not mistaken, most likely sells concessions during the summer. And then they've got a nice little area for the kiddos to play. And my personal favorite,
I haven't seen one of these in years. Let's watch this show. She's going to climb to the top and go down this thing. This might be hilarious. Well, let's see what happens. Well, let's see it. Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh, she's all tipsy. Time to take her home. Oh boy. There we go. That's all we need is a medical bill.
what can I say? I'm still a kid at heart. And what does it hurt? Not like I'm, doing anything abnormal or weird. Okay, maybe some of you might think it's weird, but it's gotta be me. Just gotta be me. Right, Marty?
Yep.
You'll have to forgive him. He's not feeling the best today. He's got a splitting headache. And I'm not the cause of it, just so you know. Anyways, as you can tell, Bonduelle has a really nice park here. Great place. I bet the kiddos have a lot of fun hanging out here. I've got one more story or anecdote from Bonduel's early days to share with you, and it involves the woods. Maybe not these woods in particular, because if you recall, back in the day before homes and parks were here, this area of Wisconsin was heavily wooded. Pretty much anywhere outside of town that wasn't opened up for farming was wooded. And so what ended up happening is a 10-year-old boy by the name of Gustavo Samp wandered off into the woods on July 4th of 1888. Now imagine for his parents, that must have been devastating, especially because when they went to look for him, they couldn't find him. Not a trace. Fortunately, this story has somewhat of a happy ending in that Gustavo was found alive 40 years later. He was actually living only 25 miles away on the Oneida Indian Reservation. Apparently, some passing members of the tribe found him in the woods and they took him home with them.
Looking back on Bonduel's history, much has changed over the years. For example, this building started as a hardware store. Sometime later, it became a Gamble's. It was even a small engine repair shop for a few years. Then there's Wayne's Place. Over the years, it's been a saloon, a hotel, a restaurant, and a billiard hall. Next to that, on this corner, used to stand a building that originally housed H.H. Heck's General Merchandise. Now you can see it's the location of the Lions Park. Moving along, we can see this place that's in the process of now being converted into a coffee lounge and photography studio. Originally a site for milling wood, flour, and feed, this was Bonduel's first major industry in town, having operated from 1869 to 1959. One thing that doesn't appear to have changed much, though, are the homes here. Sure, there's been updates and remodels and different people living in them. However, if you take a hard look at Bonduel's neighborhoods, you can see many of its homes date back to a time when it was common to build these large, stately, two-story or more homes, reminiscent of Bonduel's earlier days.
Hopefully you enjoyed taking a little walk down memory lane and seeing the sights of modern-day Bonduel with us. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get into every business or talk about every place here in town, but that just means when you come down, you'll be able to check those places out yourself.
Though many will pass on through as they make their way farther north, why not stop and tarry a while? There's more here, waiting for you, if only you take the time to discover it.
Until next time, this is Sightseeing Sally.